Hello and welcome to the Lift Up Journeys podcast. My name is Katy and I am one of the founding members of Lift Up Women in Life Sciences, a community created to connect, champion and inspire women from academia through to C-suite across the life sciences industry. I'm looking forward to sharing with you an inspiring collection of career stories from a group of wonderful women who work in leadership positions across the life sciences industry. I hope by listening to these stories, you will feel inspired in your own career and gain the skills, confidence, and knowledge you need to climb the career ladder and break through the glass ceiling. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lift Up Journeys. Today, I am joined by the wonderful Marta Parmar. Marta has a fascinating background with over 22 years of combined R&D and regulatory experience in the pharmaceutical industry. She's focused her work on driving registration and enabling early access of innovative medicines in a variety of therapeutic areas, including oncology, neuroscience, cardiovascular, and renal conditions to markets worldwide. She has a really in-depth knowledge in clinical and technical development regulatory requirements and compliance obligations, with a keen interest to apply international standards where possible and contribute to global access equity by helping reduce the registration gap between the first market approval and other countries worldwide working with regulators. Marta is a member of TOPRA, Professional Women's Network, HBA, and enjoys mentoring professionals across the pharmaceutical industry. Marta received her PhD in molecular biology from the University of Zurich and a diploma in regulatory affairs from TOPRA at the University of Cardiff. Marta lives in the Zug area in Switzerland with her husband AJ and daughter Sienna. When not at work, she spends time with family and friends, yoga and cardio activities to keep body and mind fitness. That's such a wonderful introduction, Marta. How does that feel to you, hearing all of that back?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katy, for this introduction and for having me here with Lift Up. I'm very excited to share some of my thoughts about career in regulatory affairs and also where I've come from. But I think what's really exciting today is to spend time with yourself and again share some ideas also and have a nice conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. I think a wonderful starting point for us would be to maybe talk a little bit about what the younger Marta was like. So maybe before you set off on this exciting career in industry. So maybe if we start at the point where you were much younger in school, what was your dream career back then? What did you think you'd end up doing?
Maybe a bit boring, but I really wanted to be a scientist. It's and you know at the time there was a lot going on around HIV and what was that disease and 1985 the concerts where Freddie Mercury sang and so it was really this exposure also publicly to the science and try and understand what's going on with us. And, you know, similarly, a few years ago with COVID and I think this is where we as you know human beings we just move things to make it happen, and it was hugely inspiring for me and also I did look at you know what what we could do and how I could impact and contribute to these you know scientific progress. Overall, I think what really also impacted me was the you know the minority of female scientists
Yes.
and you know scientists like Marie Curie or Rosalind Franklin really inspired me because they were trailblazers in their own fields, you know, physics, medicine,
Yeah.
chemistry. Um, And of course, this has given me, an inspiration to carry on in that direction.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear that you saw them as role models for you. And like you said, female scientists have always been the minority. I think we've made great strides in recent years to make these sort of entry level positions become more accessible for
Mhm.
women. But there is simply just less role models. But it's great that you kind of saw them and thought, hey, I really want to be like them. Is that what inspired you to go off to university in Zurich?
Um, yes, I mean, not necessarily the location.
Yeah,
We moved as a family. I was born in Belgium. My parents are Polish, and we moved to Switzerland for my father's job, and I carried on from school to university in Switzerland. The Zurich University has a reputable, you know, uh, department in science, and of course it was for me really an interesting field to work in oncology at that stage for my PhD. So. Yes, I took on the offer to do my PhD in Zurich, and from then, decided to take a big career step to move to the UK for a postdoc in the industry. So that's at that point that I really got exposed to the pharmaceutical industry when I did my postdoc.
and that must have been quite a big move for you to come to the UK. Did any of your family or any of your friends come to the UK, or were you simply here just on your own for a little bit?
I was on my own with my dog.
Yeah,
So I packed all my stuff. I packed my dog with me, and I drove. Actually, I drove to Cambridge from Zurich. That was a really interesting journey.
yeah,
And I have to say it's exhilarating to do these kind of moves. Also because it brings a different mindset. It broadens your horizon from a cultural perspective, from
yeah.
a network perspective as well. So I would encourage anyone to take these type of challenges and steps in their careers for
Yeah.
sure, and their
It's a
lives.
fantastic, yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity, isn't it? Love that you brought the dog with you as well. I think that's so important. A little bit of home to come with you as well. And obviously you've gone straight to Cambridge as well. Tell
Hmm.
us a little bit about what life was like in Cambridge.
Oh, brilliant. I really like the university atmosphere. Although I wasn't part of the university directly, I was working for a spin-off of the university then. It was really this a fantastic connection between research done at university and the industry that is very close to based in Cambridge on the
Yeah,
Cambridge Science Park. So really, creating an incubator for research and development, and then having the investment coming along quite closely to boost whatever drug or development is required further to make a successful asset and treatment for patients.
yeah, it's a great setup. It's a great setup as well to allow people to come out of academia and to be able to
Hmm.
go into something that's maybe working for the industry as well, but bringing those skills through straight away. What was it you were doing? You were working as a scientist, I believe.
Yes, yes. I was working as a scientist, and I was a part of the team developing proteomics. Back then was quite new technology to map out proteins and how signaling of proteins works in this case in the repair of DNA, which is tightly connected to various forms of cancer as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting. Really, really interesting. Did you enjoy this first exposure to working in the industry?
Very much. This really allowed me to be exposed to drug development from early stages of R&D all the way to commercialization, and it really opened up my eyes and my mind to various areas of drug development. And that's where I really thought about, well, what could I do next?
Yeah.
I'm someone who's extremely curious about what's going on, and on the other hand, I really wanted to keep this close connection to science.
Yeah.
So I really took the time. It took me about a year and a half to make the transition from scientist to regulatory affairs. And I'm glad I took this time because having seen all the options that are available out there to work in drug development and its commercialization, I think it's important to find the area that suits most my values, but also my strength and where I can really use what I built so far from my career.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you took over a year to kind of decide and evaluate all the different areas, because there's so many options within
Yes.
industry, isn't there? There's so many different types of roles. What was it about regulatory that stood out for you?
Regulatory affairs is such a diverse area of expertise and knowledge. Um, it spans again across the whole drug development from early stages of R&D to commercialization. So it really is one of the few functions that are inputting and helping throughout the end-to-end process of drug development. So that was really exciting. The part that was critical for me was to be close to the science, and of course, when we look at a marketing authorization application, the dossier is a story about the development of the drug, and of course about the reasons why this specific drug would work in the target indication and the treatment for the patient that we're aiming for. So it's really understanding all the in depth, all the details of the development and ultimately the product. Now, what was also important for me was um, having this role of enabling and helping other functions to get where ultimately as an organization we wanna be. And there's a variety of options in regulatory to grow. It's from product strategy to operational excellence, with of course preparing submissions and with regional as well work, which was also part of my development. So I went into various areas of regulatory as well as I grew in my career, looking at Reg CMC, international, global product strategy as well. So never bored, that's for sure.
I'm sure you're not, bless you. So, with this first move into regulatory, was this made in the company you were working in, or did you seek that with another employer?
I sought that opportunity with another employer. Yes.
Exciting.
And it's it was interesting because the company I was with as a scientist was a very small company.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
we were at the stage of development targets, nothing being commercialized. There was very little input really needed at that stage from regulatory. Um, and so the way I approached it, the challenge of finding a role like this
yeah,
outside of my current company, I grew my network within the Cambridge Science Park and as well as within the scientific community in Cambridge.
yeah.
So I met with other colleagues from the industry as well as colleagues from the university and built that network to help me connect with people outside. And then Amgen came up with a program to bring in people in from people in as trainees and very quickly I moved into roles through the organization at Amgen to grow my regulatory knowledge, starting with clinical trials and then moving into registrations and other areas.
And that must have been quite a different experience for you, having gone from a small organization who were just in development stage, like you said, only still very, very early and hoping to grow, versus Amgen, one of the biggest biopharma companies in the industry. What was that transition like for you?
Um, it was thrilling. It was really thrilling. I have to say, it's it was in a way it was challenging because most of my peers who joined this program, trainee program at Amgen, came from a pharmacy background or a background of science combined with some regulatory affairs. I came as a pure scientist, at the bench in a lab. So it was quite a big jump for me to move into, such a function and a completely different area, and a different company, of course.
Yeah,
Um, the size of the company is you know it's challenging because what you would think you have at hand very quickly in a smaller environment, in that case, you had to look for it. You had to search for people who could help you, or you had to understand all the programs that are being used and access to everything and trainings, procedures, standards. All this came along as I joined the organization. What was fantastic from a an infrastructure perspective is that there's an onboarding. There's really a framework to develop people from the start
yeah.
in their role. And that's something I would strongly recommend to anyone who's moving to a new career, new area of interest, is to really think about the type of organizations that they would want to move to. The reason why I'm saying this is because, smaller companies are fantastic to get an exposure to a variety of areas and to be able to get your hands dirty with a lot of different projects and different experiences. However, it can be quite challenging when it comes to get that base of experience and training.
Absolutely. And the onboarding programs is a really great example of that. They tend to be really well structured and tried and tested in a lot of the big pharma organizations, whereas the
Hmm.
small biotechs are probably trying to create them as they go, right? Because there's so much
Yes.
going on. So, yeah, I think that is really, really great advice. Where did you go from Amgen? Talk us through kind of the transition from Amgen and where you ended up moving on to from there.
Oh yes, wow. I then moved to Novartis, back to Switzerland,
Yeah.
and that was a great experience. Again, my move to Novartis was also motivated personally to move back to Switzerland, closer to my family, and what I really wanted to do was to get this exposure to headquarters. Again, it's a big company at the time, much bigger than Amgen also. And my role at Amgen was really local UK and European regulatory affairs.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so coming to a global role within Novartis was really a change for me too, from a career perspective, but also from a culture perspective. And then I really realized that companies have really different cultures and different ways of operating as well.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to I the role I had was in the cardiovascular and metabolism franchise, so
Mhm.
also a different disease area to oncology, where I was when I was at Amgen, and um, and again, many changes at the same time to grasp
Yeah.
very quickly
Yeah.
as I got in the role at Novartis. And I moved also then to Roche after Novartis, and that was really a continuity of my growth within regulatory, because at Novartis I had also the chance to experience regional regulatory affairs
Yeah.
and a bit of quality compliance as well
Ah,
with the countries, which was very exciting. But of course, a big focus at that time was for companies to expand geographically.
yeah.
So similarly, Roche had also that priority in their organizational goals, and I joined Roche in the international team. Very
Mhm.
quickly grew to lead a team as well,
Oh,
and
wow.
um, and went back to manage lead products and product strategy for oncology as well as neurological products. So
Wow.
that was really interesting.
And going into the international markets, I'm assuming is everything outside of US and Europe, so focusing on sort of rest of world
Yeah,
regions, was it at Rush?
correct. Yes, yes. And that was another eye-opening, I can say,
Yeah.
of how diverse regulatory requirements are around the world, and what is it that is really critical to a global organization
Yeah.
to ensure that we have early registration and access in those markets as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's and it was a big turn also from an industry perspective, because regulators in markets outside of the US and EU really, and outside of Japan as well, so non-ICH
Yeah.
markets, I would say, are really pushed really the industry to ensure that we have products registered in their markets, and build really those relationships with companies to enable those medicines to be registered and then to give access to patients.
Yeah, must have been quite a rewarding role for you to kind of bring that global and that regional experience into markets where patients have never had access to treatments
Hmm.
before. Must be challenging, but very rewarding in the same breath.
Yes, extremely rewarding. At the time, I also benefited from the fact that we had a global initiative around expanding in emerging markets, and a lot of support from senior leadership, but also allowing us to basically drive this change and drive this focus of accelerating our filings in those markets. What has been again really interesting in this role is I got exposed to a lot to the business, working with general managers as well as in the countries, as well as regional heads on the commercial side and on the market access side to really join efforts and making sure that what we're enabling from a regulatory perspective makes also sense from a
Of
commercial
course.
and access perspective.
Of course, yeah, and that's great experience for you as you go on to develop in your career as well. It's to
Hmm.
understand the commercial side of the world as much as you've come from the scientist and the development background to now understand how we can commercialize that to reach the patients.
Hmm.
It's giving
Hmm.
you that full life cycle experience, really, isn't it?
Yes, yes, totally. And this comes back to, the reason why I moved into regulatory affairs and how I've started building those blocks of knowledge and expertise in the various areas of regulatory affairs.
Yeah, and one of the areas of expertise I believe you started at Roche was your leadership experience. Tell us a little bit what that was like being in your first leadership role.
Yes, daunting. It was daunting and exciting at the same time. I have to say, I joined and we were, a fantastic group of colleagues and peers. Really rooting for the expansion in markets outside of the US and EU. And then, I was given the opportunity to lead some of those peers ultimately. So um, this was it was a challenging part for me because I had to wear two hats in that sense. I didn't
Yeah,
want to lose the the experience as a peer with the rest of the team because we're all colleagues. We all aim for the same goal, really, ultimately. And I had to also wear the leader hat, which in some instances was to, give feedback to
yeah,
my team members and to ensure that they grow where they want to grow, but also that they deliver on our goals. And so it was. The start of my journey of growing as a leader and leaving some of those parts of interactions that need to move to a different dynamic.
yeah. I completely understand it's daunting. It's really daunting when you've not led a team before to almost then be responsible for their own development as much as you still really want
Mm.
to continue with yours and also still be close to the science, close to the patients and what you're doing. It's a lot of hats to wear, isn't it? And obviously now that's probably put you in really good stead for mentoring and coaching and all the work you do now. So leadership must have been something that you maybe naturally fell into in the end.
Yes, that's a really good way to put it. Because I I love being able to support my team members in their development and their successes. I think it's highly rewarding, and I really really love giving back. So, to your point, I do this at work as a leader, but I also do this as a mentor outside of work and at work if people are interested, to have that support. And I think it's a two-way experience. It's really enriching from my side because I've had mentees who were scientists in the lab and wanted to get out of the lab, similarly to my career path. So I could help them to carry on with their aspirations, and also female leaders in other areas of the industry, in market access or medical affairs, who wanted to have a career change. So it's been enriching also from my side to understand where those mentees were coming from,
Yeah.
and how I could help them.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to someone, Marta? Just thinking for yourself, having been an individual contributor to then going straight into leadership, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe considering whether a leadership position is right for them or not?
Um, it takes time. It takes time to become the leader you want to become. I would highly recommend to be true to yourself. It's important that you have this authenticity in your leadership, because it's what will build your credibility, and people will trust you in that way. So and at the same time, I really strongly also advise that people, as leaders, take the time to really focus on their strategic leadership. Block your time to prepare yourself when you have interactions with your team or other peers in colleagues in the organization, um, because this is reflecting on you as a leader. So it's important to have that time to to think about your organization and what will help your team grow. The reason why I'm saying this is because I myself struggled with taking a step back. I enjoy very much being in the action, such as working on a marketing application, and bouncing off ideas for regulatory strategies, moving a product through development. But it's partly not my job anymore. This is really something that my team has to do, and I want to help them to do it. So again, it's really taking the time um, to prepare to be able to give the best advice to the team so that they can succeed in doing those strategies. And obviously the way I lead my team will reflect on them and their successes. So it took me a while to enjoy that dynamic.
Yeah, and I think that's a very fair assessment, because some people I feel always really want to set out to be in leadership positions. But if you don't enjoy it, there's so many
Mm,
other ways you can succeed in your career without needing to lead people. It could be project leadership, or it could be people leadership, couldn't it? It could be
mhm.
down to what works for you. So I love the fact that you said take some time to think about what works for you, and trial it and see
Yes.
see how you feel. It must have been a big learning for you in your career to transition in that way.
Yes, it has. It has, especially because, at the same time, or a bit before, I moved really into purely leadership roles. I did try out, quite a few areas in regulatory affairs, from development, then global strategy, commercialization as well as regional expansion and Reg CMC. So having all these different experiences under my belt, I really felt that what is it really the right move? It's one way to encompass all this within my leadership role, but as well, I really lose some of this diversity,
Yeah.
in my day-to-day work. Um, I can say I haven't, because I also choose to, to focus on certain areas while I lead my team as well. And I think this is what reflects really on my diverse background.
Yeah, there's so many different areas that you've had experience to that you can bring all a variety of experiences with you into
Hmm.
leadership, meaning I guess you can help and support more people, can't you? So that's really interesting. Take us on the latter part of your career journey then. So you were at Roche, you were leading a team, you were in the international markets. Where did you go from there?
Um, I made a change. Again, I made a change moving to Biogen, a smaller company. So that was really the start of going into smaller sized biotechs, and the role I took on at Biogen was in Reg CMC, regulatory CMC,
Ah,
and it was also to look at expansion and
okay.
growth in emerging markets for biologics as well as small molecules in that space. It was a really enjoyable role, because on one hand it had, of course, this additional knowledge to build in regulatory CMC, and continue the journey on wanting to expand in geographically in other markets. It was also allowing me to focus on some of our external partnerships with regulators and also policymakers and
Yeah.
FPR. So I managed to join FPR at that point, and to shape a bit the environment in those markets. Um, what was also exciting about this role is that I started as the sole regulatory person in the team in Switzerland, in our offices, Biogen offices in Zug, and it was great to be there to connect with the rest of the organization based
Yeah.
there. So I built a network with supply operations, QA as well, and quality assurance, and I think it opened, this part of the for me, this part of the organization a bit more, and made it a lot more tangible for me to be a partner with them, as well as in R&D, to be honest.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it? I think, particularly if you look at a regulatory professional, it's very important to build those partnerships with people who work in all other
Hmm.
disciplines, because your role is to support them and also for them to be able to come to you for advice and support as well. So I love the fact you said you built your network. It was something you did earlier in your
Hmm.
career as well. So I think it's great you were able to do that. And from Biogen, where did you land from there?
After Biogen, I landed in Alexion,
Wow.
again as well in Switzerland. Their site is was based in Zurich, and I joined the international region.
Oh, wow.
as the international head of regulatory affairs.
Mm.
Um, and this was a big step up for me as well from a leadership perspective. And of course, I had a big team to lead with all the regulatory leads in the regions and in the markets in my team. So for me, it was a good continuity of what I had already started at Roche,
Yes.
and that I also grew with the Rec CMC part experience at Biogen. But definitely, going back into pure international regulatory was thrilling. And at Alexion, the remit was really all markets outside of the US and Japan. So again, I got to get back into the European regulatory space as well. And this role really truly challenged me from a leadership perspective.
Yeah.
I had to really think to not just enable our regulatory goals and objectives as an international region, but really truly represent the regulatory professionals from the countries in the international leadership as
Yeah.
well.
So it's a big journey to make, isn't it? To then be the representative of the regulatory voice within the organization. And
Hmm.
obviously, Alexion was such a big move for you, but a really, really exciting one. And great, it allowed you to obviously still continue your career in Switzerland, because I know how important
Yes.
that would have been for you at the time. It's a fantastic jump to make. You're not with Alexion now, though, are you? You've made another move within the industry since then.
Yes, I have. So I moved to V4, which is now CSL V4. I moved from Alexion soon after the acquisition by AstraZeneca,
Of course.
and
Yep.
this happened in as it would happen with acquisitions. I
Yeah.
think there's
Yeah.
a lot of changes and opportunities that come up, and sometimes it's good to see a change as well
Yeah.
come through in those situations. So I was very happy to get the opportunity with V4 to there become head of regulatory affairs for iron deficiency and the cardiorenal portfolio.
Oh, wow.
So that became again a global role with a lot of different models that we used within the organization with partners in certain markets, as well as global partnerships for development of the product. So again, change in the I would say the operational model, a change of
Yeah.
culture, even a smaller company than Alexion.
True.
I thought that was a fantastic experience to have this exposure to leadership and executive committee as well,
Yeah.
much closer community, obviously in a smaller company.
Absolutely. It's such a journey that your career has been on, Marta, to have experienced the big pharma and to have got lots of different exposures there to different areas,
Hmm.
to now being in the smaller organizations, but with all of that experience under your belt. I think that's a really exciting journey to have made. I guess what our listeners would love to hear from you is maybe some of the advice that you would now give back to someone. So, particularly within our Lift Up community, we're here to
Hmm.
support a lot of women who work in the life sciences industry. Do you have any advice maybe for women who are in this industry? What would you say is maybe a good next step for someone who might be considering the next move in their career?
Hmm. Um, one thing definitely is nurture your network. Build it, nurture it. Make sure that you work on your relationships with your coworkers. Um, have have support, ask for help. It's important. Everyone needs help at some point, be it in their career or in their projects or whatever they want to achieve. I think um, it's not a sign of weakness. It's more than a sign of self-awareness and knowing what your strengths are and where you may need some help to develop to be better.
Yeah.
um, have the support from your employer as well as your leader. It's really valuable to understand if your organization will support you in your next move, um, and your aspirations. And again, I think what came very clear to me as I moved through my leadership roles is um, I'm conscious that I'm good at certain things and I need to develop in other areas. But what is really driving me forward is my passion, what I'm really interested in. Don't force something that may not be really quite right for you, where you just don't feel that you have enough interest in this area, because there are tough times and it will really show if you're still committed and passionate about what you're doing,
Yeah.
because this is what's going to make you really successful.
Absolutely. And as you said even earlier, that it has to align with your values. It has to align with something that you feel passionate about to make all the challenges and the tough times worth
Hmm.
it. So
Hmm.
that's very relatable advice, Marta. Thank you. We really appreciate you being on our podcast today. So thank you ever so much for taking your time to share your career story with us. One question I would love to put to you at the end is why the Lift Up community is something of interest to you. Why are you keen to be a part of what we're doing here?
um, Lift Up is really a great opportunity to connect with people that we've not even thought of
Yeah,
connecting with. It's I absolutely love the enthusiasm, the energy, and also the great mindset and open mindset that this initiative is bringing through the podcasts and through your live sessions as well.
yeah,
Um, Again, it's having it sparks this curiosity about also areas that we may not even have thought of would be important and impactful in our career or in our projects. And so I think it's a great way to take some time and reflect on new things and learn, of course.
absolutely, absolutely. And that really aligns with our overall mission. We're here to connect, to champion and inspire the wonderful women who are already in our industry and hopefully inspire a new generation as well. So thank
Hmm.
you ever so much for being a part of the journey with us, Marta, and thank you for being so open with your own personal career story. It's been wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you, Katie, and it's been a pleasure. And again, thank you to Lift Up and yourself as well for making this experience fantastic memory. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time.